Voting in elections has always stayed as herculean task with Kashmiri Pandit community living in exile in Jammu and other parts of India for last 3 decades. What seems to a simple act for millions of voters across India exercising their right to franchise is a mammoth exercise for this displaced Kashmiri Pandit community. The members of this community living in exile currently vote from the place of their ordinary residence, which means the place where they are currently putting up. And majority of the community has been exercising its right to franchise every time elections take place like the rest of citizens of this country. It is important here to say that the community has been exercising its right to franchise in accordance with laid rules and norms in People's Representation Act 1951 and Electoral Rule 1961 of this country. Both these legislations clearly mention the term ordinarily resident and lay a set of norms for the concerned BLO or election officer to verify the physical presence of the individual or family at the address mentioned by the voter. Thus, when we talk about registering of electors, Kashmiri Pandits qualify for the place where they are ordinarily residing in exile and have every right to exercise their voting rights. However, we have seen a very vicious campaign over past few elections against this displaced community, blaming it for not voting. A deliberate confusion is being created over the right to franchise of this community, and we need to understand it thoroughly. Precisely this is the reason why Apolog has taken a lead, and in this effort we wish to set the record straight, nipping the argument and discourse that KP community does not vote. Kashmir, as we know, is infested with the idea of separatism and anti-national sentiment. Majority of people in Valley boycott elections as they feel India thrusts democracy upon them and they are seeking political resolution of the issue. An absolutely irrational attitude, considering it is the democracy of this country which gives them right to protest, and upholding it should be the prime responsibility of every citizen. In order to make the society at large more participative in election process, it is necessary to create spheres where society at large exercises its right to franchise. It is in this understanding that government thinks the participation of Kashmiri Pandits in election process becomes imperative. Needless to say that Kashmiri Pandits were a part and parcel of the society 30 years back. Many efforts have been made by political parties to ensure that KPs vote from their respective constituencies in Valley to ensure larger participation in elections. Majority of the KP voters have over these years enrolled themselves in the voter list of constituencies they are currently residing, and as we have said before, are duly voting from these constituencies religiously. The expectation that this community should vote from place of their original inhabitation, which is Kashmir Valley, has created confusion in the mind of community. A carnage has been purposely spread that if KPs do not vote from their respective constituencies of Kashmir Valley, their claim to Kashmir will eventually dilute and they will become persona non grata. As per the data available, there are nearly 22,000 KP voters still registered in Baramulla, around 40,000 in Srinagar, and nearly 45,000 in Anantnag parliamentary constituencies. However, the Election Commission of India has made no efforts in past 30 years to ascertain the physical presence of these voters, considering majority of the community has left the valley 30 years back. Presence of nearly 1 lakh voters in the electoral rolls of Kashmir raises a big question mark over the integrity and functioning of this institution in Kashmir. This is one aspect of the whole scenario. Election Commission of India has arbitrarily created a mechanism of M forms for these registered voters to vote from their respective constituencies in Valley. These M forms have to be filled by eligible voters expressing their intent and interest in voting from their constituencies. Once filled, With all the jargon connected, these M forms are sent to respective BLOs and election officers for an endorsement and eventual preparation of final electoral rolls. However, it has become a trend that the concerned election officers, either through sheer complacency, do not bother to include them or actively collaborate with those vested interests who don't wish KPs to be part of election process, as has been the case ever since the elections took place in Kashmir.
मुझे बताइए क्या मसला हुआ? आप तो वोट डालने आए थे ना यहाँ उदयवाला में, तो क्या हुआ?
वोट इधर नाम ही नहीं है लिस्ट में।
आपका कहाँ पर ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी कौन सी थी?
चाडोरा कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी।
चाडोरा। क्या नाम है आपका?
राधा कृष्ण भाट।
राधा कृष्ण भाट। कितने वोट थे आपके?
4 वोट थे।
तो चारों नहीं है?
चारों नहीं है।
आप
फॉर्म भरा था।
कहाँ पर?
ये उदयवाला।
उदयवाला में भरा था आपने?
Imagine it takes at least 3 days for a displaced Kashmiri Pandit to fill the M form and submit it, and in a disdainful manner, the institution snubs by not including the name in final rules. We have come across ample evidences on ground where the KPs had to return from polling booths in Jammu and outside, dejected and depressed.
हाँ जी भाई साहब, आपका नाम क्या है?
मेरा नाम मिंटू मावा है
जी। आप बताइए क्या मसला हुआ आपके साथ वोटिंग के लिए?
एक्चुअली हमने वोटिंग के लिए एम फॉर्म भरा था, तो अपने जोन पे भी हमने सबमिट किया फॉर्म, लेकिन
कहाँ पर?
सरवाल 4।
जी जी।
तो हमारा नाम उस लिस्ट में है ही नहीं। अभी हम वही वोट डालने आए थे, चेक किया लिस्ट में नाम ही नहीं है।
नाम ही नहीं है? तो ये बताइए मुझे, अगर आपने फार्म भरा तो फिर वोटर लिस्ट में आपका नाम क्यों नहीं आया?
जी ये तो वहाँ के बड़े अफसर को पता होगा, हमने तो अपनी तरफ से पूरी फॉर्मेलिटी की।
आप कश्मीर में कहाँ रहते हैं?
जी कश्मीर में हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी वैसे अमीरा कदल पड़ता है, श्रीनगर
जी
डिस्ट्रिक्ट।
जी, मतलब वही अमीरा कदल है ना आपका? तो ये आपका कौन सा बूथ कौन सा था? पोलिंग बूथ?
पोलिंग बूथ हमने यहीं के लिए भरा था, एग्रीकल्चर उदयवाला।
एग्रीकल्चर उदयवाला। तो यहाँ आपका लिस्ट में नाम नहीं है। कितने वोट थे आपके?
जी हमारे 4 हैं।
4 है, तो चारों का नाम नहीं है कहीं भी है?
Here we have an institution called Election Commission of India, which at one end spends crores on advertisements and arrangements to increase the voter participation in India, and at the other end discourages the potential and eligible voters. Imagine bearing all hardships connected with the voting processes from Kashmir Valley while staying physically away from these constituencies, giving 2 hoots to the conventional roti kapda makan, the basic prompt for participation in elections, giving a heck to the scope of using a voter card as an address proof, ignoring the loss of identity twice. This community prefers to keep the nation above everything else, always ready to sacrifice its personal interests for larger nationalistic interests. What it gets in return for all the hardship it bears. Not ironical, but unfortunate, this community comes under the spanner of criticism and racial slurs. We have seen the naked dance of such ill-informed misogynists in social media going berserk over the inability of this exiled community to vote from Kashmir. Least do they care to know and understand that the process of voting for Kashmiri Pandits, the whole process is so loaded and biased against the community that even if a brave heart dares to fill those arbitrary M forms, the inefficient role of Election Commission of India dampens the spirit by not incorporating their names in final rules. What we believe that all Kashmiri Pandits should either be allowed to vote from their respective constituencies in Valley and their migrant data form, which carries all the necessary details and validation from government for inclusion in the electoral rolls of Valley, be used for incorporation in electoral votes. Scrapping the arbitrary M forms should be undertaken as it leads to further marginalization and wrecks the community interests. The constitution of our country accords us the right to equality, and creation of these M forms leads to its deprivation. In case it's not possible for some technical reasons to allow Kashmiri Pandits to vote from Valley, it would be ideal if the ECI registers all the 1 lakh voters at their place of ordinary residence. At least this will save the exiled, languishing community from racial slurs and criticism. At least it will give a sense of respect and dignity to the community. And at least it will imbibe a sense of place in an otherwise wandering community. Thank you.